It's season 4 of Air Check, where we've been presenting 4-part episodes all season long. This is part 4 of our conversation with Brian Kelsey, who's an on-camera host, cinematographer, producer, and voice actor in the New York City metro area.
On this episode, we learn about Brian's mentors on the radio and in radio imaging. He reveals some other project on which he has lent his voice. We also find out if he's been successful getting Howard Stern on his new TV show, and who else he may have his sights on to appear as he continues to build the momentum of 10 Minutes with Brian Kelsey.
Let's do this.
Welcome to Air Check Season 4, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities, managers, consultants, owners, and your most humble hosts from Philadelphia, Rich DeSisto and Paul Kelly.
I'm Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Paul Kelly.
This is part 4 with Brian Kelsey. On our previous episode, Brian revealed his love for Dr. Johnny Fever, WKRP fame.
It all goes back to television. I hate to say it. WKRP in Cincinnati.
There you go.
And still one of my favorite shows, Dr. Johnny Fever. Rest in peace.
Brian also relived his early radio days back in 1992.
I had to wear the Fox costume and 95-degree heat waving on the road, like all that stuff.
When he joined 2 legendary New York City radio stations at points of format changes just 3 years apart from each other.
Q-104 was pretty straightforward. It wasn't too much, but then when I got to KROCK afterwards, that's where it got really, really hairy.
And how a balloon landed him his job at Q-104.3.
And so I had a balloon made up. It said Brian Savage on the air, in the air, pop and listen. I put the tape in there, blew up the balloon, and put it in a box and sent it to New York City. And I got the job.
One more time for Brian Kelsey. Brian, what I like are some of the parallels between you and some of the other talk show success stories, where they began and where you began. You come from radio, and you're getting into your television video podcast series. David Letterman came from radio, and a lot of the other successful talk show hosts, they came from radio. So for the non-radio industry listeners to this episode, our guest here, he's got the creative flow and the juices are there, and that's what you need to get to the level where Brian Kelsey is.
Well, it's a lot of, so much practice. Radio is so good for so many things in media and in the industry, because as those of you who are in radio know, you have to do a lot of stalling sometimes. If you have a talk show, absolutely. I learned so much in the 4 years hosting that Martha Stewart Living radio show, because a lot of times I was, it was just by myself, and I had to talk for 4 hours and interview people for 4 hours and try to find guests, callers. And you find ways of stalling, you find ways of making guests who are uncomfortable, make them comfortable, make it sound good, all these things. And that's, I really think, like, radio kind of sets you up for that, because you have to, it moves along, it doesn't stop. You got to keep going, It's, although now it's a little different, I think, with pre-recorded. But in my day, on-air light went on, and you had to talk. That was it. You had to say something.
So who were your mentors? You grew up in the Connecticut area. Obviously, the New York metro radio market was what you listened to. In terms of radio and air personalities, and then also talk a little bit about your mentors when it came to the voice work that you do, the voiceovers and the commercial and the production. Who are the guys in the business that you look up to or still look up to? So let's start with radio. Who'd you listen to when you were a kid, and what drove you in that direction based on that exposure?
Definitely Howard. I listened to Howard since he came on, since I could listen to radio.
NBC. It is 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. NBC figured that they'd put me on in the afternoon, increase their ratings, and save AM radio. So we're going to sit here all day, wait for the phones to ring. We have a lot of celebrities who are going to call in. It's going to be exciting, Neil, and this should be quite a momentous occasion.
Really, it was WNEW and Dave Herman.
Good evening, everybody. A beautiful June night in New York, and this is Dave Herman with you on WNEW FM in New York. Maybe tonight.
That was the golden age, the 80s kind of AOR radio, they call it, album-oriented rock, and that was what I really listened to a lot, and some top 40 too, but really those guys. And in voiceover, so when I started working in New York, at Q-104, I got a voiceover agent and started going out and doing auditions. I would sneak out during the day, going out around the city and do all these auditions, and got in trouble more than a few times, particularly with Steve Kingston, who was calling me on the phone and I wasn't there. I was, out. Anyway, and so I started doing all these voiceovers for radio stations and for TV stations, and then it really started with John Frost. He was at KROQ when I was at KROCK in New York, and that's in Los Angeles.
The continuing adventures of the new KROCK sticker. Trying to get his message out, even though he can't talk. The KROCK sticker runs into some kids. Wow, that's a gnarly KROCK sticker.
What? He's trying to tell us something.
I know. Let's read his back. By turning the KROCK sticker over, the kids learned we can win a private show
for 100 friends with the Deftones.
Man, I could go on and on about John, and just like not only a great guy and a great mentor, but just so creative. I still, to this day, it just blows my mind. So he was the sort of the North Star of what I wanted to be. And he was very helpful. And I went out to California a bunch of times and got to sit with him and stuff like that. It was great. And so he was like my main sort of, he was my guy.
So this episode's listeners may not know that they've heard your voice on television commercials, national spots. Give us something that you might have done recently that they might recognize your voice from.
Well, it doesn't sound like it does now because I'm talking through my nose like this, but I just did all the SAG Awards spots for the SAG Award show, the TBS and TNT. So all those things, coming up next week, and
give us that read so that they will recognize your voice.
Let me think. God, I don't even remember, and I just read it. The 21st. It was like
the SAG Awards, live Sunday, February 27th on TNT and TBS.
For years and years and years, I was the voice of MSNBC. They just stopped the show, but on HGTV, Log Cabin Living.
All across America, from New England to Hawaii, from the Rocky Mountains to the Appalachian countryside, more and more people are searching for log cabins. Awesome! This is Log Cabin Living.
I really want to get back into voicing radio. That's just my favorite. That's where I started, and I want to keep going.
Something what a lot of listeners might want to know, because you work there in the same hallways in the production studio and on the show, and you won't answer, how much did Howard Stern pay you? But then the real question is, do you still stay in touch with a guy like that?
I still have his email, and I probably could just reach out and email him, but I don't. I not that much. I mean, we talked a little bit on through Facebook a little bit, but I do keep in touch with Gary, and he's a local. He lives not far from here. I did ask if he could be on the show. If Gary could.
That's where I'm going here.
Yeah. Well, of course I love to. Howard won't. I mean, Howard. He won't leave his bunker, especially during the pandemic.
You take the show to his house.
I will drive out there. Absolutely.
Take the set.
Gary was so nice. He's like, they don't allow them to do many interviews, which, whatever. Of course, I have to ask, so.
Right. Sure. Go for the no.
I know. I mean, and that's again, I could just look at this list of no's of just. And it's not the celebrity, obviously. It's the PR people who I reach out to. It's like you can't even, get to the actual person, of course. But they're doing their jobs. They're gatekeeping, making the right choices for their clients, and they don't want to come to some random guy's garage. But it's getting a lot more clout. So it's rolling now.
So are they aware of your 10 Minutes With show, and have they seen something like the Gilbert Gottfried episode, who'd been on their show a bunch of times?
I sent that to Gary for sure, because I asked him to do a imitation of Gary.
Cool.
And so he did, which was so funny. And so I just sent Gary the link, and He thought it was so funny.
So when Howard saw you walking down the halls of Sirius the first time, was he happy to see you? Was it a reunion of sort, or was it just the same old, just like, ah?
He's so funny because it's like he'll be he's got a certain route that he used to leave and so the way I would go, I'd be leaving, and we both sort of be leaving at the same time, and he would just say, hey, just small talk. He's not, he tries to get out as fast as he can because everybody's going to want to stop and talk with him. I mean, like getting out of KROCK was just, I felt so bad for him because like he'd come out and the salespeople would come out and say, hey, can you read this spot? And then, the censor, everybody would try to get him, and he just wanted to go home. So I was trying to just keep a low profile. So Howard, hi, how are you?
Air Check, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities. You're listening to Season 4. Catch up with Seasons 1, 2, and 3. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Air Check Podcast.
This show, 10 Minutes With, very entertaining. What's next? I mean, you've built this thing. You've got a template in mind of how you want it to go from YouTube to the tube. I mean, what do you hope is going to happen here?
Whatever. I mean, now with Moco, it's a streaming service. It's not on. I mean, it's the older episodes are still on YouTube, but the ones we're working on, they're all going to be streaming. So that'll go to the world and whoever, because they have such a huge, big fan base. And so, I just want to grow it as big as it can, however that is. I'm just, it's like the only thing I'm focused on is making great content, making great shows, because in the end that'll speak for itself. So that's just kind of what I focus on, trying to get good guests and trying to make it entertaining.
I wanted to ask you also, are you a musician?
Yes. I actually wrote and recorded the theme song to the show. A few caveats before I roll the final song. Number one, it's very rough around the edges, loose, and slightly out of tune, but again, that's in keeping with the entire program. Number two, yes, I could have had my professional musician friends come in and record the whole thing from start to finish, but why? It's so much work. Plus, I built the set and I did everything myself, so why not just write the song myself? So sit back, relax, gather the family around the computer, and enjoy. I'm a drummer, but I also play guitar and I play keyboards and some bass, and I have a lot of friend musicians. Like I'm in a band, we play and stuff, and I could have asked them to record it, but then it's like it's just the vibe of the show. I've been already doing everything else myself. Why not, record in the theme music, and that's just what I did.
Well, the things that you were doing inside the radio stations, when you're doing the recorded call letters and the positioning statements and the dial positions, all those things that you're recording over sound effects for a radio station, help give it its identity, its stationality. Did you produce all of those things on your own, the drum beats and the keyboard stuff? Were you creating your own music pads that you voiced over?
No, because it was not easy back then to do that. Now it's a breeze. Like you can come up in 2 seconds and have anything. Back then there really wasn't. So I would just take songs and sing to them. So I would take, and this is what John Frost was doing. And so that's why I was doing it at KROCK in New York. Finding parts of popular songs that they were playing on the station, and either looping them or, where there's no lyrics, let's just say, and it was not easy to do because a lot of songs just didn't have that part where you could actually sing something. So I would find stuff that I could sing and songs that were lent itself to having, a part that was just instrumental and no singing, so that I could sing something stupid like the call letters or whatever on top of it.
Tell us about your band.
Well, I was in a band for a while, and now I'm forming this new band, and kind of playing different instruments. So I'm playing the Hammond organ and also the drums. So I kind of swap back and forth, drums and Hammond organ, and it's just it's always been like the most important thing, like music, and so I'm always going to be playing in some regard. But it's so fun.
Well, you're certainly keeping yourself busy, man. You know, there isn't enough time in the day to keep up with your creativity, but you have a way to contribute to express it in the various projects you dive into. And as this new band gets going, what else are you looking to keep your sights on moving forward?
Definitely the show is like full, you know, that's like my main focus, but just continuing voiceovers. I just love doing it. It's just, you know, so fun. But the main thing really is really trying to get that one really, really big guest, a big name celebrity to come here, because I think that would really put the show to a next level and get it more, you know, to a much bigger audience. It's growing, but like you need something. I need, like, Kevin Bacon lives not far, and that's been in the works for so long to try to get him to come. And that would be something like that would be just amazing.
Well, somehow there's going to be a 6 degrees where that'll happen. So
I know.
Well, Daryl's got a house. Brian's got a garage. I mean, maybe Daryl Hall is that guy.
I know. Doesn't he live? I think he's in Pennsylvania. I think. Again, I'll travel. The show will travel. So whatever we can do.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being part of Air Check-In on this session. It's great to see you. It's great to hear from you. It's great to hear your stories and to fill in the blanks of you know, the pieces that only you could fill. And congratulations on everything that you've done, man. I mean, I don't know what you can't do. I mean, you're a musician, you're a carpenter, you're a voice guy, you're an actor, you're a creative mind, and you're really putting all your you know, all your talents to work for you, and lots of luck with 10 minutes. I hope you do find that guest, and I'm looking forward to seeing this thing go to the top where you want it to be. So thanks again for being here.
We may even want to put that to the test and see if you could handle double guests. Rich and I love to sit around fire pits. It could be in the summertime or the winter time, so we might appear in your driveway and see what your servant skills are like, delivering beverages out to the fire pit.
It would be my pleasure. You guys, this has been really fun, and congratulations to you guys. Like, this is great. This is really, really good, and you know, there's not, you know, a lot of people are doing a lot of things that aren't that exciting, but you guys are really, it's really coming together, and I'm just happy that I could be here and see you again too, Rich. It's been 1,000 years. We're so much older. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
There you go. Now that's a guy who wears many hats very well.
A true jack of all trades.
Aircheck Seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 are available right now. Go ahead, binge a little. As Season 4 continues, we're presenting 4-part episode series all season long.
You can follow us, stream, and download every episode of Aircheck on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Aircheck Podcast. If you haven't done so, give us a great rating. We'd also love to hear from you on our Facebook page, Aircheck Me.
This is Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Paul Kelly.
We'll talk to you soon.
Closing out another episode of Aircheck, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities. If you have radio stories to share, we'd love to hear from you. Join the Aircheck guest list. Email aircheckme@gmail.com. Musical props are Chris Gordon's. Announcer props, I'll take those. Greg O'Brien, the OB. Aircheck is available now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Aircheck Podcast. Aircheck is the creation of RDPK Productions.